Hello and welcome once more to Aletheia Human. Today we are going to celebrate together a very important date. This day, once a year, we celebrate Mother Nature. And for doing so, I have invited an incredible woman. A woman that has dedicated her passion, her time, and her wildest dream to discovering and uncovering climate change for you. Actually, she was not always a climate change specialist. Actually, her specialty began in conflict coverage, with notable assignments including the Falkland Islands War, Desert Storm in Iraq, and the Bosnian War. She went on to become an award-winning TV journalist, working for the world's top broadcaster, including BBC, CBS, NBC, among others. She was one of the few women to work as a camera person and editor in conflict zones until 97, where something happened. Today, Joyce Ferder will tell us more about global warming and what effect it had on her own life and what can we learn from this. Welcome, Joyce, to Aletheia Human. Hello, Joyce. Thank you for answering our invite to Aletheia Human. It's a huge pleasure having you with us. Joyce, I think you're from Florida, right? I see the beautiful landscape behind you.
Yeah, right now, because of Corona, I'm in Florida with my mom. I was afraid if I went back to my home, which is in Ireland, I get stuck and she would need help. So I'm here, and it could be worse. Yeah.
Tell
Right.
me about Degrees to Extinction. That is your huge project right now. It's your video, your first film, documentary film. Tell me about the experience. Tell me about what you have discovered.
Well, it's interesting because been very fortunate through my career to be able to go to places that most people don't get to. But this is my own project. This is a self-funded, sometimes I think folly, but like I said, it needs to be said. Going to places that no one's been before, very few people have ever been, and seeing what is actually happening and trying to bring that back. But then I realized early on, after the first incarnation of the film, it's not about what's happening there that's so important at this point, because it's so far into the game. It's what can we do to survive this and thrive, which I do believe is possible. And it's interesting when you talk about the situation now with Corona, the fact that we're learning, hopefully, to not consume so much. I mean, the fact that our air quality has gotten so much better in 3 months proves that there are ways to do this. I mean, everything that I've been saying in the film, I talk about how GDP needs to be decoupled from carbon. So that way you have to have other measures of what your economies look like. And this sort of proves it now as well, that, renewables are there. There won't be fuel poverty with, and climate injustice if we do these things. So I'm trying to point out all of those kinds of things, that water is the most basic issue that we're dealing with, either too much water or too little water.
Right.
And those, cause famine, it
Extremes,
causes
right?
flood. And this is the problem with the planet, is that the balance is completely gone. This consumption is killing the planet because the resources are finite and you can't keep doing that.
And actually, as human beings, we show our grandeur, or how strong we are, or how of what material we are made of,
Resilience, yes.
in the face of big changes. And I'm definitely confident that will be able to show this and find new solutions. And there is something about resilience in it. And I've also invited you to Aletheia Human because of the theme of resilience. I know that something in your life happened in 97. Before that, you were a journalist covering conflict zones,
Yeah.
all over the world. You got several great awards for this. You were one of the few women doing this back then. And then
Yes.
something happened in 97, and it probably changed you completely.
I had a horrific car accident in Kenya, and broke my neck, and have a serious brain injury. And at the time, no one quite realized that I had the brain injury. And so it went undiagnosed for a year. I was having a lot of problems, but yeah, so that some of the damage became permanent, which, that's a whole nother story. But I had to relearn to read, which for me was horrific because I used to read a book a day. Ever since I was a little kid, I was this voracious. I had 10,000 books in my library. I mean, I just loved reading, and I could no longer read. And my eyes don't focus at the same rate. This eye and that eye don't work in tandem. So I have actually special glasses that I still have to use. And it was 23 years ago, almost, the accident. So every time I took pictures, they were out of focus. I couldn't focus. I still have a problem. But what was so horrible about this is I was this completely self-sufficient, high-powered, climbing mountains, going and being bombed, always on person, to now I couldn't even walk sometimes because I'd fall over. I literally would fall over. And so I was what I did. I was this journalist. I was this camera woman who, went into these places, and now I was nothing. For me, there was a saving grace in there that I acquired dyslexia as part of the injury. Words wouldn't be there that were there, words that weren't there would appear, letters would change. It was the strangest thing. And I hooked up with these doctors at the time at State University of New York, a Dr. Kapoor, who I'm actually still working with, and they were working on these programs on how to teach dyslexic children how to read and how to live with this situation and make it work for them. I became patient A, basically, because I, as an adult, can explain, having been fine before, what I was experiencing when they would put me in front of these computers with these programs. Incredible. So in some ways, for me, it felt like, oh, this is why I was given this opportunity to help in something that needed help with. So in that point, I became empowered by that, because, okay, I can give something back. If you're given a tool, a gift like that.
A saving grace of
yes.
remastering what you knew prior to this big event, and having it used in another environment. When you say saving grace, I mean, this whole event was at some point, when you mastered it, was a new opportunity to do something even greater. And that's where exactly. You enter the climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to the conquest of other latitudes. You travel and take pictures differently. And
right.
What was similar and what was different from war zones?
Well, it's interesting. Well, what was different was I wasn't being bombed all the time, and chances I wouldn't have been arrested anywhere and thrown to prison like I'd been before. But the similarity was amazing to me, because I realized this is just this is another conflict zone, only it's the whole planet. It is not a regional conflict. It is a planet-wide conflict zone, which is why for me, it became a aha moment of, this is what I was sort of leading to my whole life, that I've been dealing with regional skirmishes that were caused by resources being overused, because that's all wars are about. That when you look at them, either they're fighting over water, you're fighting over land. That's about resources. And now climate change is a global conflict, man with his environment, and the environment will win. And the question is, can we maybe do a ceasefire with? Can you learn to have peace? You need to have, and we need to have a peace treaty. With the stronger side will win. And it's how much self-preservation, and my disability is like that as well. You learn to live it because it's self-preservation. I believe that the human beings, again, are the only species that doesn't get, like other animals, self-preservation. It's one of saving yourself, learning to live with the world as it is. And again, interesting, I'd never thought about this before. It took a long time for me to accept what was happening to me, what had happened to me, and assimilate it into as how do I go positively onwards rather than being all wrapped up going, oh my God, my life is over. I no longer go out and do what I used to do, which was hard. Every time a story would break on the news, I'm like, I need to be there. And obviously that wasn't going to happen.
I want you to share us, to explain us the visual. You're in the Antarctica and you're seeing something, and then you realize that's where I should have been always.
Yeah. It was interesting. Ernest Shackleton, who was a great explorer, he ended up dying in Grytviken, which is in the South Shetland Islands. And we were there on our way down to full Antarctica. I was following his footsteps. It was the anniversary of his voyage. And I'm standing at his grave, and I turn around, and my big moment in what helped make my career was the Falklands War, Las Malvinas. And I was in Buenos Aires during the whole war, and I was supposed to go to the Malvinas, to Port Stanley. The Argentines had finally agreed I was going to fly in with my crew, and we were going to film. I was working undercover for the BBC. And British stormed the South Georges, and the first soldier, the Argentinian soldier to be killed, his name is Felix Artuso, and I covered his funeral. And Margaret Thatcher didn't like that because we said in our stand-up, and this scene may be repeated many times at the funeral, and not just in Argentina. And they got very upset and said, you can't say that these things are happening, would happen. I said, well, last time we looked, bullets didn't care what nationality you were. So here I am years later, and I mean years later, because 1982 to, it was 2013, I think it was. And I'm standing at his grave of Shackleton, and I turn around and look down, and there is Felix Artuso's grave. Right there. I had no idea, because I thought he was buried in Buenos Aires, where the funeral was. They had brought him back, and the British Foreign Legion honored him as a fellow soldier who was mistaken. He shouldn't have died. He shouldn't even been, it shouldn't have happened, and honored him by burying him with honors there. And to me, that moment was, I saw this climate change stuff happening. I saw these problems around me, and I realized he was saying to me, you have a voice. Remember, you had a voice then, you have a voice now. And as if he was saying to me, this is what you need to do. And it sent chills up my spine, because it came from nowhere. I was standing there feeling sorry for myself. My husband had just died. I'm on my own. Why am I here? And he was saying to me, you are here because you can tell everyone what is happening. And regardless if they don't like it or not, it doesn't matter. You need to go out and tell them. And so that's my journey, standing in the middle of this incredible environment at this man's grave, who has affected my life in ways he will never have. He might know, but I know that it's just incredible.
Is it destiny?
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, it is. Everyone has a reason, I think, for being, and this is mine. And you have to go through things that make you who you are. I regret nothing in my life, no matter how bad or anything. Everything brings you to where you are. And every day is a chance to do something of value.
Take us in your trip with you. What would you want us to discover? Because today is the World Environmental Day. We're celebrating Mother Nature. So what picture you want us to bring with us?
Wow. I think for me, the most iconic photograph I've taken in recent years, and also it speaks to me about all of it, is of what I call fire bears. It's these two polar bears. They're waiting for the ice to form in the Hudson Bay so they can go out and hunt. They haven't eaten in months, and they're very thin, and they're young bears, so they're still learning their way. And it was dawn. I woke up one morning, and the sun was coming up, and these two bears were out sparring, and all of a sudden the sun comes up behind them, and one bear hit the other bear, and the snow bounced off them, and they're in this glow. I started to cry, because the majesty of these animals in their natural world. I can never see an animal like a polar bear in a zoo now, because that it's so wrong. I don't care what people say about conservation. When they're traveling thousands of miles and in their natural world and are free and can be who they are, you can't put them in a cage. And I just stood there because I realized I'm seeing something that is not long left in the world, but it was so powerful and so beautiful about how we survive and how things are, and just nature in its basic, rawest, most beautiful way. And it's affected everything I've done from that. It's just, it just is, that picture to me is the whole thing encapsulated. Everything about the world, the beauty, the majesty, and the fragility of what we have, and not to take any of that for granted, whether it's my health or the world with diseases or the climate and temperature rise. It's all works together. It's fragile, and we can make this work all together, or we can just give up and ignore it, and then at our peril.
Let's believe that we'll make it.
I have hope. I have hope that human beings will come through. We are strong, we are resilient, and I think we have intelligence. So I'm hoping that right now, with all the craziness that we have in our world, that this is a organization attracts chaos. So my theory is maybe we're at that point now where we're putting in the organization, and that's why it all seems lost, but it's not. So hopefully we will be on to a better thing very soon.
I'm sure we will. I trust in human being, and I trust all the more in human beings that have found their purpose in life. And this is powerful. Thank you for sharing your saving grace and your purpose. You have taken also some decades to find your purpose. And thank you for sharing actually your travel and your inner self to rediscover yourself. So, Joyce, it was wonderful having you. And what I will retain is this invitation of doing this peace treaty with Mother Nature.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joyce. And good luck in your journey. And let's sign this peace treaty with Mother Nature. A bientôt. Ciao.
A bientôt. Ciao.